welcome to Coloring Coorain. TV is boring, watch art instead. And now for a special news flash. NASA has added more images of Mars to its large public domain image collection. I used to think NASA didn't do anything for me or, well, anyone, but then I learned they have a large cache of public domain images and videos that we all own. It's fabulous. Hi, this is Coloring Coorain at the Heidelberg Project in Detroit, Michigan. The project's about 30 years old. It was started in 1986 by Tyree Guyton. Is green tea extract Frank Stella's secret to longevity? Watch Burning World Issues to find out. Your #1 source for news and commentary. While you watch, the world burns.
You're now watching Coloring Coorain.
And now back to Coloring Coorain. All the news you can't use because it's art. Thanks for tuning in. The Heidelberg Project, an art installation in Detroit, is ending. But is it? Portions of the project will be dismantled and are headed towards museums, while buildings that have been part of the installation may become museums in their own right, as it transitions towards an art organization instead of installation. Coloring Coorain went on site for a special report on the project before portions were removed. Stay tuned for that report later in the program. American mid-level and fast food restaurant chains are all cleaning up and throwing out their flair. TGI Fridays, Ruby Tuesdays, Applebee's, Olive Garden, Wendy's, Arby's, Burger King, McDonald's, and Taco Bell are all part of this trend to add more blonde wood and clean lines to your dining experience. I guess it's a trend that is supposed to attract millennials. In celebrity news, the internet seems to be on fire over an image of Rihanna posed in front of a headless sculpture of herself. The work, by Juan Sebastian Pelaez, is installed at the Berlin Biennial and is titled A Y Panoma, Rihanna. It's part of a series of headless sculptures by the artist that emulate these headless monsters. Epiphagy, Acephallo, or Blemmeyes are all names that historically have been used to describe these creatures, which colonizing explorers claim to have seen all around the world, but particularly in the Caribbean. Sir Walter Raleigh, in 1596, created a particularly popular image, early Renaissance meme, if you will, that really impacted how the West, still today, seems to view the Caribbean and other parts of Latin America. As much as there are profound political implications to sort of recreating these images today, I want to focus on the choice of celebrities and soccer players, which I think is so brilliant. These are all people who are completely and utterly judged based on their physique. It's the only way we really evaluate them. We don't consider what's going on in their minds or sort of their choices in terms of any kind of intelligence. To me, it just makes the work, as much as it's sexist and monstrous, a brilliant, brilliant work of art. In other celebrity news, Madonna will be at Art Basel Miami. And yes, you can sit with her if you win a lottery. The fundraiser, which is titled Vogue with Madonna at Art Basel Miami. Is this real? Okay, so I want to take a second. Really, I cannot. Wow. Okay. So I just want to take a second and clarify for anyone who doesn't know, which is totally fine, although it's shocking that Madonna maybe appears to know and not care. Voguing is a dance and actually, quite frankly, a culture created by queer African Americans and other people of color. This is a group of people, that, particularly those that don't conform to gender norms. This is a group of people that have created and still practice this dance and culture who have yet to see any profit from it. Meanwhile, Madonna has taken it on as her own, despite not experiencing any of the oppression that this group of people has, and she's made millions of dollars. So it doesn't seem very fair. Granted, the fundraiser is to help build a hospital, but not near any of the people who created this culture she seems happy to profit from. So I guess that's all I have to say on that topic. It's kind of sad. Did Alec Baldwin buy the wrong painting? Was he duped? Baldwin claims that he was deceived by Mary Boone Gallery into purchasing a recently made copy of a Ross Bleckner painting from the mid-1990s. Mary Boone Gallery has publicly stated that the painting is in fact an original and that they've made every effort to make Baldwin happy, including offering a full refund for his $190,000 purchase. Wow. Squabbles to the rich, you gotta love them. Speaking of overpriced artwork, Fabrizio Moretti, an Italian antiques dealer, is suing mega gallerist David Zwirner over a gazing ball sculpture by Jeff Koons for a total of $6 million. Moretti claims that he entered an agreement to buy the sculpture in 2014, has paid off his debt, and has yet to receive the sculpture. Apparently, the sculpture is also a different dimension than expected, and not as hot as expected either. Another copy of the sculpture, which is an edition of 3 plus an artist's proof, didn't sell at auction at Sotheby's. Awkward. Anyways, Zwirner, the mega gallerist, claims that the client has refused delivery several times and is now using the court system as a negotiating tactic. Squabbles of the rich. The New York Times has recently reported that famed photographer Nan Goldin did not invent Instagram. Although the artist's body of work might suggest or predict the rise of social media, she in fact has no part in its invention. The article goes on to cite several important art experts to prove that while Goldin may have invented Instagram on accident, her work is still brutally honest, important, and, well, better than Instagram. In other art star news, Marina Abramovic wrote something pretty racist about Australian Aboriginal people in 1979 in her diary. Portions of the diary are being published in an upcoming memoir, minus the racist blather. It does make me question, though, whether talking about a racist comment from before I was born, which hopefully Marina's learned something since then, is maybe besides the point when Aborigines are actually experiencing blatant racism on the regular, quite frankly, the daily. It seems like if you are attuned to that, you would probably find a news article at least once a week about, say, someone in a golf tournament throwing a banana and calling a competitor a monkey because they're an Aborigine. In other news about racism against Aborigines, they have some of the highest rates of incarceration and suicide in the world. So, in other race-related news in Australia, Lisa Minogue's recent photography exhibition, The Colored Girls, documents African Australian women and includes interviews with the subjects about what it means to be a person of color in Australia. You should check it out because it's actually pretty good. Art F City, a popular art criticism blog, has published a viral post about seating at MoMA PS1. They noted that in their current Vito Acconci retrospective, that one particular couch faces a blank wall rather than the two video works nearby, which have no other seating. It's as if the museum didn't want people to actually, view the artwork. In other news, Frieze magazine has published 25 things they've learned in the past 25 years of publishing art magazine. The first and last, of course, are the only ones worth reading. The art world functions on alcohol, and the last one being that art history is a work in progress, and that art criticism is the daily work on that work in progress, which I kind of loved. Speaking of freezes, well, sort of, in architecture news, the blog Worst of the McMansions is starting to make waves on the internet. It's actually a really great blog, and it delves into stuff like what social pressures brought about the rise of McMansions and why they're so terrible, and like what even one is really. For more information, head to mcmansionhell.com. I highly recommend it. The blog is, if nothing else, hilarious. In other architectural news, Zaha Hadid is having an exhibition of drawings, paintings, and digital art at the Serpentine Sackler Gallery in London. Hadid was the first woman to ever win the Pritzker Prize, which is colloquially referred to as the Nobel Prize in Architecture. The prize is awarded irrespective of nationality, creed, race, or ideology, but apparently not gender, given that only 2 women have ever won the prize. So you know that Hadid's like really, really, really good for breaking the glass ceiling, right? Well, I'd expect her art to be just as good if her writing on art is an indication. I mean, I know there's a lot of great thinkers about art who can't make art, but I'm really hoping for her. I mean, her buildings are gorgeous, so I'd be surprised if her drawings aren't, right?
You're now watching Coloring Coorain. You're now watching Coloring Coorain.
Do you need a paternity test? Tune in to the next episode of Burning World Issues, your #1 source for news and commentary. While you watch, the world burns. The first Antarctic biennial has been announced, and because it's quite frankly so bizarre, created quite a buzz in the art world. Artists aged 18 to 35 are invited to propose projects, and one first-place winner will get the chance to complete theirs on a once-in-a-lifetime economy flight to Argentina, and from there a cruise along the unpopulated continent, in exchange for ownership of the artwork they produce. The 15 finalists will be invited to a group show at the Antarctic Pavilion. That's the first time it'll be at the Venice Biennial next summer. I'm unclear about who the Antarctic Biennial is supposed to represent, but apparently the gesture of creating a non-country pavilion is the point of the whole project. Curator Daphne Ayas has already left the project, citing concerns about key decisions for which she was never consulted. Coloring Coorain will continue to keep you updated as the project continues to fall apart. Artforum's summer issue this year is about identity politics, and I have to admit I felt really compelled to read it. But I never acted on the compulsion. I did read Canadian Art's article, Notes Towards an Inconclusive Identity Art Politics, by Mary Georges. And I have to admit, it's really, really good and well worth reading. And now for our special report on the Heidelberg Project. Coloring Coorain went on location before the announcement was made that portions of the project are being dismantled and sent to other museums, while the project itself transitions into an arts organization. I'm not sure what the future holds for Heidelberg 3.0, but if it's half as good as the previous iteration of the project, it'll be great. Hi, this is Coloring Coorain. I'm at the Heidelberg Project. Today we're at the Heidelberg Project, created by Tyree Guyton in Detroit, Michigan. The Heidelberg Project is kind of an all-encompassing artwork. It's over 30 years old at this point, and it was created in response to the Detroit riots. To me, the space is really inspiring because it literally used art to create a safer space in the city. It's filled with, what I think is amazing and definitely some of the best artwork I've seen in a while. Any way you want to call it, it's older than most other social practice works, which maybe you could categorize this at. There's a lot of painting, installation, sculpture. It kind of has everything you could want in an artwork. It's amazing. I'm really inspired by the fact that someone, took everyday objects. A lot of the paint here is just house paint. A lot of the sort of canvas is plywood. It's not really about getting the best technique or the best materials. This space is about creating art in a space where people needed it. There's a lot of clocks here. For me, the clocks kind of reference Detroit as a place where time has stopped and progress is over, and sort of the clock is broken in a way, and sort of these factories have stopped working, but there's still a lot of life here left, and we can sort of create a new clock. We can create our own space here, and we can create kind of our own way to judge what it means to be a bright and beautiful city, which I think Detroit really is. I think the clocks for me also reference what it's like to be an artist and how you're not really on the clock or off the clock at any point. For me, being an artist is about always being an artist and looking at the world critically and thinking a lot about it. There's a lot of polka dots throughout the installation, and I think that they're a particularly interesting metaphor. The artist's grandfather, Sam, was a huge fan of jelly beans, and so they were sort of around during his childhood a lot. And for Tyree, they really represented diversity and how they're all the same, but they're all different colors, and how people are like that. And I think that's really beautiful, and I think that it kind of speaks to the beauty of this space. Part of the work was created by children. the children of Detroit are credited here. And that's just a really cool thing to integrate kids into what I think is a very serious art project. Oftentimes we think of kids art as, scribbly drawings that aren't really worth much. But in this case, I think it's a really valuable sort of city beautification project that isn't benefiting some rich developer, but it's actually benefiting the people of Detroit, the people who actually live here. Coming into the space, I didn't expect to feel as inspired and as touched as I do, partially because I think as a culture we discredit so-called folk art or visionary art, whatever term you want to use to describe it, but this is a really valuable piece of work. Well, it feels strange to discuss this work in reference to Mike Kelly, but there's a lot of stuffed animals, there's a lot of sort of similar objects and techniques that maybe show up in Mike Kelly's work, which I think the connection can't really be ignored when, Mike Kelly is from Detroit, and kind of his last great artwork, the mobile homestead, is on display just a couple miles from here. I tried to visit it, but they wouldn't unlock the door and cited that some bizarre reasoning that, the artwork cannot be seen on Coloring Coorain, which I think is tragic when you think about what Mobile Homestead, the work by Mike Kelly, is supposed to achieve as sort of this community art space, but not letting in the community cable station. I don't know. It's just an awkward tension that I feel like MoCAD, that's the Museum of Contemporary Art, Detroit, has really brought upon itself, and I'm really disappointed in that. So that sucks. However, this institutionally free space has a lot more art per square inch, so suck it. This has been Coloring Coorain at the Heidelberg Project in Detroit, Michigan. Thanks so much for tuning in. Roxane Gay's recent op-ed about our inability to separate the art from the artist was really touching and, quite frankly, one of the realest things I read in a while. Here's a brief excerpt to round out today's show. We've long had to face that bad men can create good art. Some people have no problem separating the creation from the creator. I'm not one of those people, nor do I want to be. I recognize that people are complex and cannot solely be defined by their worst deeds. But I can no longer watch The Cosby Show, for example, without thinking of the numerous sexual assault accusations against Bill Cosby. Suddenly, his jokes are far less funny somehow. I cannot separate the art from the artist, just as I cannot separate my blackness and my continuing desire for more representation of the black experience in film from my womanhood, my feminism, my own history of sexual violence, my humanity. Thank you, Roxane Gay, for sharing your wise words. I really appreciate it. And thank you for watching Coloring Coorain today. I also really appreciate it.
Thank you for watching Coloring Coorain. Thank you for watching Coloring Coorain. Thank you for watching Coloring Coorain.
If you stuck around through the program this far, I take it you love the show, but maybe you're hate watching, which I hope isn't the case. Either way, maybe a follow would be great on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. Real life, I don't know. I've never had that happen. Maybe not, but we could meet up in real life and be friends, maybe.